long as you say, okay. You are welcome to call me whatever name you please, as long as you can get my attention. It does not really matter to me. Oh, that's hard to see everybody now. I need to go back to gallery. There we go. Okay. I did a specialized double major in philosophy and psychology at York, so I have written on my own hundreds of essays, and with students, I think I'm just about in the 500s, getting pretty close. So I've written a lot of essays. I've written with students, because I don't know on my own, well over 200 short stories. I've read more novels than I can probably count or even remember. I actually have a basement full of books that it's just everything I've read. My favorite hobby is to line my bookshelf with books I've never read before, finish the bookshelf before the year is out, and then move them all to my basement, start again. Other than that, it's video games, carpentry, and I like to know a lot about practically anything that I can learn about. That's a bit about me. So let's go with Edward. Let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Edward. So we know you have a pet raven. That's awesome.
I'm in grade 6 and I live in Beijing.
Beijing's an awesome city. What do you like to do for fun?
I like to study with my friend.
All right, we like to hang out with our friends. Okay.
My favorite class is PE and science.
And science. Any science in particular?
No.
Okay. And Liv, you're up next. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Liv.
My best friend called Pan Weibo lives near my house.
All right, that's
we often go out and play together. Sometimes we eat lunch together.
It's good to have a meal with friends. And Liv, on to you next. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Liviana. I am going from grade 3 to grade 4. I have 52 pet fish. My grandma came from China a couple of days ago. I have a baby brother. My hobby is Minecraft, drawing, watching TV, reading books. You see all of those books. Writing stories. I managed to get my parents to give me 5 cents for every book I make.
Ah, smart. Very good.
Next week I'm going to 2 summer schools. On July, I'm going to Marlborough. On August, I'm going to E2, both for 4 months, but a 1 week difference between them. My favorite subject is math and reading.
Okay.
My favorite animal is a cobra.
Oh.
My favorite clothing is that coat that man is wearing.
That coat?
Yes.
That's a sweater.
Oh, it kind of looks like a coat.
It does. You can't quite tell. It's just a shoulder.
The animal I hate is a dolphin.
Oh, we hate dolphins. Hate's such a strong word.
Well, I don't like dolphins.
Well, that's much better.
My favorite planet is Proxima something something. Well, not a planet. My favorite star is Proxima something. Closest star to us after the sun.
All right.
Proxima Centauri.
Yep, Centauri. Very good. And
next year I'm going to a new school.
Awesome. Okay, I hope you're excited for that. And because of time, let's move on to you, Ryan. Let's hear a little bit about you. If you could introduce yourself.
My hobbies are playing basketball and soccer and other sports. And my favorite NBA player is Tim Duncan.
Tim Duncan. Okay. Any other hobbies other than sports?
My favorite subject in school is like science and math.
All right, and any particular field of science that you enjoy?
A little bit physics.
All right, physics. Physics are fun. Anybody know the name of our sun? The one that we rotate around? Liv, do you know?
I'm stretching.
Okay. So something that you will know.
So my friends do call me a human encyclopedia.
That's good. I still have that nickname. But the name of our sun is Sol, S-O-L. Just fun fact for you. Okay.
Such as for solar system? Is that why?
I don't know if that's why it got the name, but
it kind of rhymes definitely.
It would make sense, yeah.
I want our sun to be called solar system, so everyone knows to call our solar system solar system.
Well, if there are species out there, I'm sure they have a name for us already. Okay, so let's get down to business. First and foremost, let's talk about writing. Our main goal of our class is to improve on our writing. But that doesn't mean that we're not going to be reading. In order for us to be good writers, we have to be good readers as well. So reading will happen, and there may be a lot of it, or at least more than you're hoping for, unless you know that there's going to be reading. I'm just going to put that out there now, because I don't want there to be disappointment. I'm not going to lie to you and say it's just a little bit, and then you end up reading an entire novel. That would be disappointing. But no, you're not reading an entire novel. That would be cruel and unusual. But it's not off the table. I do know some pretty good novels. So let me just pull up this. So this is what things would usually look like, because I am, where is the button? There's the button. It's this right here. Let's start the screen share. And okay, so hopefully everyone can see my screen right now. So generally, I'm like very simple when it comes to creating student pages. I do most everything on Google Documents, and if that doesn't quite work for you, we also use OneDrive, but Mentors usually lets me know which one we use. Hello, Raven. Is your Raven's name Nevermore? No, that's just a reference to the poem. Okay, back to business here. Now, usually you'll have like this page bookmarked, and any kind of Zoom information will usually appear here. It's usually the exact same Zoom room, I believe, or the Academy Zoom room. You'll be provided with all that information, or at least your parents will. And then we have 3 different spots on our student pages, and I give everyone their own page. That way you can do your own writing without usually, because I do share everyone's writing, so that way you can take a look. So that way you have your own space to do your writing. So the chalkboard, this is simply where I will put anything that I need to have written down for you to follow along with. If there is a particular schedule for a lesson, that's what appears under a chalkboard. And everything appears under a date. So it's pretty easy to navigate. If your page looks something like this, when you get it, you simply have to find these dots up above, click on them. Unless you're on like a tablet or another device, sometimes you won't have those. And then if you don't, you just let me know, and then I build a table of contents that you can just click on the top of your page. But usually the summary, when that's open, it's easier to follow along, because then you know workspace. This is where we do work in our actual sessions. You will be doing all the typing there. Homework space, this is where I write down almost, if like sometimes I will write it, but then my internet will disconnect and then it's annoying, but this is almost where all of your homework will be submitted. If not on the page, it'll be on a separate page in a folder that we use together. So I do try and assign vocabulary words so that way we can learn to use them. These instructions are actually out of date because I've written far more specific ones, but it's always important to build your vocabulary. Why is it important to have a large vocabulary? Anyone want to tell me why we want? Go ahead, Liv.
If you have a big vocabulary and someone says, can you tell me what abstract means? Then you can immediately tell them.
That's actually a very good word as well. Does anyone know the definition of abstract? Even simple, before Liv lets us know. Ryan or Edward? Not quite. Liv, what is abstract?
Like something that's not normal.
That would be abnormal. Abstract is something that we can't quite touch or taste or feel or smell. It's like happiness or an idea.
Is air?
Pardon, air is like it's in the real world. It's outside of us, so it is concrete. But it does seem.
It's not concrete. It's air, not concrete.
Well, it's not literally concrete, but it is a concrete thing. It exists outside of ourselves.
Makes sense.
Abstract is all in our brain. So a community.
Your brain is not abstract, even though it's not outside of you.
Yeah, that is correct. But the brain does think in abstract ways. That's what makes humans rather unique. In fact, Edward, as a raven, ravens have been known to show abstract reasoning, which is absolutely fascinating. That's why
turning into a flower is abstract.
Yes, the idea of becoming a flower or using literary devices, also abstract. So typically what I would do is I would give you a set of words to learn and memorize, and we do a writing activity with them, just to expand your vocabulary. And another reason why we want to be able to understand what people say is we also want to be very specific in what we say. If we say everything is good, well, you can have like a muffin and that is good. Or have a wonderful time at a theme park and just say that was good. But was the muffin the same as going to like riding on roller coasters?
No.
Probably not. No, we want specificity of language, or the literary device that we usually would use is called diction, a choice of our words. So this is essentially what you would end up writing on. And I'm going to give everyone a link very soon if you would like to physically participate in some of our writing activities. But let's talk about a couple basic things just to start. And these are questions that I ask every grade level, because you can never, repetition is important. It's how we keep things in our brain. It keeps the connections. Yes, Liv?
Could you use your own books? Because I have mine.
If you want to write down on your own book, yes. But when we do class work, it will eventually have to appear on the screen, or at least somewhere that I can mark it. Because I don't...
I'll just type it on the screen.
Yeah. Today, it's up to you. But things for like homework or anything, I don't mark pictures. That's one real big problem that I've had before, is I would get pictures of homework being completed, which is, it's really difficult to mark, because then I have to physically print it out, mark it, and then take a picture of that and post it and hope my writing is legible, which I have doctor's handwriting. It's not very legible. Okay, so let's go through a couple basic. When I say parts of speech, what the heck do I mean? What is a part of speech, Ryan?
Like a thing that you're gonna present.
That would be a speech. But what do I mean when I say parts of speech?
Some part of it, like their paragraph or their
That's structure related. Olivia, Liv, go ahead.
Interjections, conjunctions, nouns, verbs, adverbs, pronouns.
Yes. The categories that we place words or phrases or clauses into, and words, phrases, and clauses, that's from small to big. A word, singular thing, a phrase, up to 3-ish words. Some people like say up to 4. And then a clause is a series of words connected, and you can have different types of clauses, independent and dependent. Like a noun phrase, or I guess this would be a noun clause, depending on how you like it, but the President of the United States of America. It's a very long statement, but it's not a sentence on its own. It's just a clause. It's quite long. The Prime Minister of Great Britain. These are titles, but they aren't sentences on their own. A clause eventually turns into a sentence, depending on... Yes.
Do you know how to speak eyebrows?
With eyebrows?
Yes. Speak to us with eyebrows right now.
Speak to you in eyebrows? I don't know. My eyebrow is a little rusty. So yeah.
You just did it.
I did. Parts of speech, they're important to know, because sometimes you'll get questions that are rather tricky, and we want to make sure that we understand a question, the difference between who and what, or why and what and how. These are different questions. Knowing how to ask questions, that's also really important to good writing, also good reading. Grammar is a tough one, because in English, grammar is half and half. Half of it is structured, the other half is dependent on the time that the language is spoken in. So we won't do any old reading. Probably the oldest reading that we'll do will have been a story written in the 1800s. But other than that, we won't be going further back. And even then, that the language is not like Shakespeare. It was in the 1600s, where he just wrote in a way that we have no way of really, okay, that's normal, old Queen's English.
I know one word in Indigenous.
Okay, yeah. But which language, though?
Squamishes.
All right, what's the word?
Yata means
What does it
oak
mean?
tree.
Oak tree.
Oak.
Okay.
Not the tree pot, oak.
all of us actually know I forgot what indigenous language it is, but the name of our country, or the name of the country that's 3 of us are in right now. Anyone take a guess? Canada, yeah. And what does it mean?
House or village.
Yeah. Welcome to
Lots of people know Kanata.
Exactly. That's why Canada is everybody's home, and we
when I wrote a story about Canada, instead of the title Canada, I wrote Kanata, and it was about indigenous people living on Canada.
Awesome.
Not modern.
Sounds good. All right. So with the basics aside, which you will do a basic activity just to take a look at parts of speech, rules of grammar, which just means you look at the 12. I know it's a bit much. The 12 different tenses. So we've got past, present, and future. Cool. That seems easy enough until we go. Then we've got simple, progressive, and or continuous, perfect, and then progressive, perfect, or perfect continuous tenses. As in, is something true? Is something true in the past? Is something done? Is something still happening? Did something happen and finish before and or after something continued on? I'll use a lot of examples with food because that's my go-to. So eating pizza is usually what I use. Like, I eat pizza, I am eating pizza, I have been eating pizza, I will have been eating pizza, I had eaten pizza. All of these are different tenses. These are the small little things in grammar that can, going from one side of the language spectrum, like Chinese, Japanese, Korean, Russian, Belarusian, all the way to English, which like subject, verb, the order that we do these, object, subject, verb, object, SVOMPT. We'll talk about SVOMPT later. It can be a little confusing at times. So yeah, basics aside, we've got different types of reading. You have to be able to know what you're reading. Am I reading? Can anyone name any of the 4 types of writing? Or the 4 categories that we could classify writing under? Anyone want to give that a try? Give you a hint. One starts with an E, another a D, another a P, and the last one an N. And it's okay if we don't know. It's always okay to say, I don't know or don't remember. Pardon me?
Body paragraph.
That is part of structure, yes.
Essay.
What would have, pardon me?
Essay.
An essay is a format or a form of one of these categories. In fact, a couple of them. No, wait, actually, you can have an essay in all four.
No,
but the first one,
just name 2 of them.
Just name 2 of them? So do you want me to name 2 of them, did you say?
Yes.
Yeah?
Then
so
we can guess the other 2.
One of them is expository.
No idea what that even means.
Okay. The next one is then descriptive, which leaves 2.
Letters?
Not letters. Letters
no,
are
the starting letters.
Oh, the starting letter. So the next one would be a P, and then the final one is an N.
Numerative?
That would be maths. So we have persuasive writing. And then lastly...
Wait, I think I've got... Okay, I just forgot.
That's okay. And the last one we have is narrative writing.
Makes
We have
sense.
a right to explain and tell you all about something, or we write to describe. So sometimes we may need to give you instructions, or we may need to tell you back in the day when...
E could be explaining.
Yeah, description can be a form of explaining.
No, E could be explain.
Yes, expository is sometimes it does a little bit more than simply explaining or expounding information. Description, we're trying to build, like be painters, but with words for the human imagination. But sometimes we have to go a few steps above that. If we're telling you how to do something, but our instructions aren't very descriptive, aren't very clear, then we can lose track or end up with a different result. Like if I were to tell you how to build a birdhouse, but I don't give you very good detail, your birdhouse is going to look rather different than the one I envisioned or the way the instructions expect you to build one. Persuasive writing breaks down into two subcategories, one called persuasion. I don't know why we did that. We've got persuasive writing, which breaks down into persuasion, and then argumentation. For those of you going into 7, argumentation is going to be pretty important by the time you get into grade 8. Persuasive writing, however, is always important, especially writing speeches. But we'll get into the specifics of that later. And then narrative writing makes use of persuasive, expository, and descriptive writing, but it also has a different type of voice. Now, what do I mean when I say voice in writing? Go ahead, Olivia.
I think maybe you mean things like different types of voice, like hello or hello.
That would be literal, yes. But when we're talking about voice, think about the difference between narrators in novels. So, Ryan, what was the last novel you read?
Hello Universe.
Okay, good. That's a good one. And Edward, what was the last novel you read?
I don't know.
Don't remember? And Liv, what's the last novel you've read?
Moby Dick.
Oh, Call Me Ishmael. Right there, actually, is a really good example of different voices.
Hello, Michael Wong's here.
Yeah.
Michael's here.
Yeah. Michael. Oh, sorry, Michael. Are you joining in for the class?
Michael?
Or is that?
I think he's not there.
Yeah.
I think he's standing next to the computer and expects us to see him.
Okay, well, we'll worry when Michael can get back, because if that's Michael from Mentors, then he's just checking in on the class. Okay.
I don't think so.
And we've lost him. Bye-bye, Michael. Okay. Now, we have different voices when we address different subject material. So when explaining maths or science, we would hear a different voice in our head than reading poetry or reading a story. There is a different voice that has to come out of us when we write a letter or an essay or a speech or even a personal journal entry. There's a different sound to everything. You can hear, like, you can compare Moby Dick, which starts with a personal narrative, a man's experience on a whaling ship where Captain Ahab is out to get a great white whale that stole his leg. Very stereotyped story nowadays. And then Hello Universe. Ryan, how would you describe Hello Universe?
I don't really know.
Don't know. What could you summarize it for us?
So there's like a boy named Virgil and a girl named Valencia, and then a bully named Chet, and like a psychic named Kyori. And then the first part of the book was like kind of boring, so like the other half of the book, Chet like put his backpack, which has like his Virgil's hamster in it, and then Virgil went in the well, and then Chet covered the well, and then like Virgil and Valencia and Kyrie are trying to find him.
Okay. Wasn't it turned into a Netflix series, or is that still being made?
I think it's still like a book.
Still just the book, because I know that Netflix bought the rights to Hello Universe. So we may actually be seeing it on Netflix within a few years. Yeah, Hello Universe definitely has a different voice to it. And then if you can compare these novels that you've read to a textbook, so your history textbooks, what kind of sound do you think the narrator of a history textbook would have compared to the narrators of your novels? Would be pretty different, right? So that's what I mean when I say voice. When we read something, we want to know, are we reading a passage from a textbook, from a narrative, from a letter? We're trying to identify these things. Or am I reading song lyrics or a poem? Maybe they could definitely be both. Song lyrics and poetry are easily confused, especially with the format. Unless it's haiku, then that's pretty clear. I don't think there are songs written in haiku, but that would be pretty interesting. Then once we get through how to read...
What's haiku?
So haiku is a form of Japanese poetry that follows... The simplest way to understand it is 17 syllables exists in a haiku, at least a traditional haiku. You have
first 5, then 3, then 4.
First 5, then 7, then 5 again to make 17. And there,
I know that one.
Yeah. Do you guys know what a Polaroid camera is? No, that's a little old. Okay. But it's like taking a screenshot of something. That's what a haiku aims to do. It's trying to take out you, the person writing it, and just give an experience. 2 lines to capture a moment and 1 to express an emotion. And usually it's supposed to be about nature. There are rules that you follow, but when we do a bit of poetry, we will, some of the rules we will be able to ignore, but the most important one, of course, is 5 syllables, 7 syllables, 5 syllables. Right, reading. We've got some stories that we want to take a look at, and these are usually short stories, and depending on what we like, I usually go with The Monkey's Paw because that's written by a children's author who, ironically, most of his work nobody really reads. We mostly remember W.W. Jacobs for The Monkey's Paw, which is like a horror story. Yet all his other stories were not horror stories. Oh, we've lost Edward. But it's not actually scary. It's under the category of horror, but there's nothing horrific in it at all. Oh, there's Edward. And now we've lost Liv. What keeps happening? Oh, I see. It's just the camera things. Then I don't need this open. I just need that open to know who's here. Okay. So we read through these bodies of work, various short stories, a couple poems, an essay or two, I can't promise you that the essays will be very entertaining, but they follow a particular format. And at the grade 4-5 level, we would do mini essays, so a minimum of 3 paragraphs. At the 6-7 level, we're expecting you to be able to start to formulate full and complete essays, so 5 paragraphs. And we, of course, have direction, like goals to meet with these essays. So we will write expository, persuasive, and/or argumentative, some narrative essays, so personal narrative. And the stories don't always have to be true that you tell. We just have to. There's Michael. Is that Mentors Michael, or Michael, are you here for the class?
Yeah.
For the class. All right.
So I have a question.
Yes.
Are we going to write news articles? Like news
Yeah.
articles?
Yeah. News articles. That was actually just coming up. So other than writing short stories, essays, poems, we do have news articles as well, or journal entries. Probably the most difficult thing to write of them all would be, yes, Liv, you have a question?
No,
No? Oh,
I wrote a haiku.
you wrote a haiku. Do we have time? Ooh, we do have to move on. Hold on to that haiku, Liv, and then we will take a listen once I finish saying what I need to. So reflection pieces. Reflective writing, that's something that doesn't often get done at a lower grade level, but you start to see them. At least I've had several students this year that started doing them around grade 5, but reflective writing will always be challenging all the way up until university, because the instructions are generally vague, and there's no clear or specific goal with reflection, and you're expected to do so much in so very few words. So yeah, we go through a variety of writing, or like we produce various forms of writing. I don't necessarily go over speech writing, because that should be its own class all by itself. But when we need to do presentations, that will certainly like be brought up, as in if we're doing slideshows, what are some rules that we should follow? Having a well-organized slideshow and no script, that's actually pretty important, is usually a goal, and you don't have to have a script to give a good presentation. You just need to know your subject. Okay, analytical and critical thinking and/or evaluation. These are processes or activities that we have to get used to doing when we read an essay or a narrative or even a textbook. We have to be able to know what questions to ask and to know how to know what questions to ask. That sounds a little silly, but when we get to that, you will understand. And the very short version of it is you can blame a Greek dude by the name of Socrates for creating the Socratic method, questioning what something is until we don't know what it is anymore at all. But it's actually a very useful strategy. Yes, Michael. You are mute.
I think Socrates actually got killed for doing some of those things.
Yes, actually, he had a choice between. I think it's quite funny, because as a student of philosophy, I quite liked the man. He had a choice: stop asking questions, Socrates, or you can drink poison and die. And then Socrates gave quite a famous quote. Michael, do you know what that quote is?
I learned it in social class, but I forgot what it is. So.
It's a good quote to learn. A life left unexamined is not one worth living.
Oh yeah, I remember. Yeah.
What does it mean, Michael? Do you want to tell us? It's okay.
I'm still not sure. I can't remember.
That's
what
okay. If we can't, Liv, go ahead.
But I guess it's like if you don't examine your life, then you're not alive.
That's a very good point. That's not exactly what Socrates meant, but that's pretty close. Very good. Very good for a guess, Liv. A life that you cannot ask questions about, or where you cannot be curious and you're not allowed to investigate, that doesn't seem like a life worth having, where you're just told, like in The Giver. Has anyone read The Giver? No, not yet. It'll be coming up. It's a very good novel to read, or even, although the movie was okay. But any dystopian novel where you're not allowed to have curiosity or ask questions, everything is black and white and plain and boring, and you're told what to do, what to think, and how to do it, that's not worth it. And Socrates shows, well, if I can't ask my questions, I think I'm done living. It's sad, but at the same time, he left us with a very good way of learning, or a method, sorry, I should say, of learning. Okay, so those are our various forms and such. Okay, now let's take a look at a few of these questions here that I usually ask. So first and foremost, and I've probably already answered a few of these, why do we write? It seems rather self-explanatory, but why do we write? I did leave two of the answers right there on the board. Okay, that's good. We don't need to answer parts of speech, but why do we write? What's the point of it? Go ahead, Michael.
I think it's because it's basically like when you speak, like you're like saying it, but like you can't keep track of your thinking, what you're thinking. Like basically writing down is basically you're saying it, but there's a way of like, because words don't last in the air for like centuries, but we're like writing them on paper do. It's like basically keeping track.
Awesome.
Of what
Yeah,
you're writing.
that's a very good point. Liv.
Do you mean when you're answering questions or something else?
Oh, that works as well. So just the very simple notion of why do we write? So Michael gave us a rather good answer, one of many. What do you think why we write, Liv?
Why we write?
Yeah.
So if someone can't hear or deaf, as long as they can read, they can understand. And also if you don't mind writing every single hour.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So we write for, and what you're essentially saying is communication, but also we want our messages to be carried across time. That's why novelists put their stories to paper, or textbooks are written. So that way I could give a lecture now, and everything that I write down or someone writes for me as I lecture, these ideas can be communicated across time. It's like time travel, but the very slow way around, that the future will always be able to learn from the past. But also, for as Liv points out, communication. If you can't hear me, or I can't be there to tell you something, I can write it down. I can leave a note. That's why we have text messages. That's why we have textbooks. That's why we have journals. This was my experience with the adventures. Take a look at Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit. They're essentially all a tale written by someone that went, yes, Michael.
Does art also counts? Kind of like writing, like leaving your, message in history?
Yes. Art definitely counts, and writing is a form of art. And Liv?
I've read and I've watched all 3 movies of Lord of the Rings twice, and I've also read the whole series, but I've never watched Hobbits.
The Hobbit, I don't know why they had to turn that into 3 separate movies.
It is 3 separate movies, but the book,
Yes.
they
it's just
decided to
single.
shorten every single movie by half an hour to make it
Yeah.
into a single book.
I've watched well, not director's cut, but the extended editions of all of the Lord of the Rings. Usually my friends and I will have a marathon of that. I'm quite nerdy that way. Lord of the Rings, Doctor Who, definitely Minecraft. I've been playing Minecraft for a very long time. Yeah, Harry Potter, all the fun ones. Lost my train of thought. Where was it running to? Okay, so
Write it down.
I should have written it down. You are 100% correct. So we can skip over parts of speech. I already did that. Sentences. Why do we write sentences? Well, we know why we write, but what is a sentence? What's the basic, smallest sentence you could possibly write? Yes, Michael.
Letters.
Letters make up words. Liv?
Hello.
That is not a sentence. It is a greeting, but it doesn't count as a sentence.
Hi there.
Pretty
Does
close.
a poem count?
A poem.
Like
Poetry is
we?
allowed to break the rules. Did you say 3?
I said me, we. I heard that poem somewhere. I don't know why.
Liv, is your hand still raised?
I forgot to lower it.
Okay, just wanted to double check. So the shortest sentence that we can write, 2 to 3 words. And those 2 to 3 words have to be 2 parts of speech. What 2 parts of speech do we need for a sentence to be a sentence? We need a subject and a predicate. So we need a noun and a verb, or 2 nouns and a verb if we're using auxiliary or helper or linking verbs. So dogs bark. That is technically a sentence. We have a subject, dogs, the noun, and then bark, a thing that dogs do. We are telling you a fact about dogs. Or dogs are furry. That is also a sentence. Our verb being the is, it's a state of being. We have nouns, people, places, things, verbs, not just actions, but a state of being, the way something is. To say, I am hungry or I am tired. Can you actively do the action tired or hungry? No, we can't. But we still experience hunger or happiness or being bored. These are abstract things. Or tall. You can't just suddenly grow, but you can perhaps be taller than other people, which makes you tall. It's an adjective, like we describe someone as being tall. We need other people around for that to actually be true. That's something we'll talk about when we talk about diction, but like superlatives and comparatives, there's something interesting about these. And then paragraphs. What is our, so for writing purposes, what is the minimum length of a formal paragraph? Yes, Michael.
I think our teacher told us that was supposed to be 7.
Okay, I would definitely love to agree. It can be a little shorter than 7, but 7 is a very good number.
Okay.
5.
5 on the dot, you're right. That is the basic. If you are doing the shortest possible paragraph, formal paragraph that you can write, you need an introduction, you need a conclusion. That's 2 already. And then you should give us at least 3 forms of either detail, explanation, example. Maybe if you want to claim something to be true, you have to then provide us evidence, and then you have to tell us your reasoning, and then conclude. So you either wrap things up or remind us how you know that all of this proves yourself to be true. But informal, what is the expected length of a paragraph? Informal writing. So not formally, but informal. So like narrative writing, for example, what would the minimum length of a paragraph be? I hope we're all not answering, because we all know that there is no, like, you can write a sentence, and that technically in informal writing counts. When we write speech, kind of going over time. Okay, I'll try and finish up really quickly. When we're writing speech in narratives, for example, we always need to start a new paragraph when a new person talks. So if I say something and then Ryan says something, we need 2 paragraphs now. And it could be, are you hungry? Asked Ross. I could eat, Ryan responded. 2 paragraphs already. But they're both single sentences. Well, I guess technically. But yeah, when we write, we always really want to consider who is going to read what we write. Considering our audience, this is an important topic to keep in the back of your head at all times whenever you're writing. Am I writing for myself? Am I writing for someone my own age, someone older? Is this writing meant for everybody that can read and understand what I'm talking about? That informs our word choice, the style that we write in. If I want to write for adults, I wouldn't write the same way that I would for children. Children would be bored to death if I wrote material for them as if I were to speak to someone my own age or older. But then again, Liv just finished reading Moby Dick, which is written in such a way that when I was actually, no, I did read Moby Dick in grade 4. But I was bored for the first bit of it. So yeah, no, that would make sense. Okay.
I was bored for the first 10 chapters.
Yeah, that does make sense, because nothing really happens. And then the Apache dude scared me so much. I was just frightened. I was like, what is this random dude doing with a axe and hatchet? Ugh. And now Pegleg comes along. Ugh. Okay. Yes, Michael.
Isn't a Apache supposed to be a helicopter, not to do with an axe, whatever?
It is also a type of helicopter, but they are also a tribe, an indigenous tribe in the, I believe, I know they're in America. I just don't know the exact region. I don't think they're in Canada. Usually when I teach social studies, I brush up on that before I actually teach it. But yes, it is a type of helicopter, usually quite a lethal one too at that. We talk about various forms and structures. So if I say write a formal response or write a story, but write it as an essay, and then now we write it as a poem, and now we write it as a news article, we should be able to change our tone, the structure, as if we were, I don't know if this is still modern enough, but like a Ditto from Pokemon. It's always just changing, or like clay, you're always sculpting to fit the role.
It's already 6:04.
Yes, I am over time. I do tend to talk a bit too much. I was going to try and get everybody to write today, but I tend to talk a little longer than I should. Does anyone have any questions, comments, or concerns before I say anything, say our last few words to wrap everything up? No questions, comments, or concerns? No? Okay, so just to give you a heads up, our first lesson, what it would look like, I'll give you a quick view of that, and then Michael will want to say something before I send everyone away. But I usually try and get, where's my button? This one. I usually try and get everyone to do this the first time, but we always start with a free writing activity. This is to encourage like thought, to get us used to just taking our thoughts and putting them on paper. That is sometimes the hardest thing to do for most writers. So I would give you a word or a prompt where you essentially, if I say cell phone, now you write absolutely everything that comes to mind about the word cell phone, regardless of punctuation, grammar, spelling, anything. As long as you were writing and your fingers are moving or your pencil is going, that is great. And then I get everyone to practice a little bit of persuasive writing, and then I give you a quote to think about. Eventually, we talk about how to create what's known as the lazy essay outline. It's called lazy because you don't have to do much other than fill in 43 numbers. And then you end up with a full entire 5-paragraph essay. So we can shrink that down for mini essays. It's quite easy that way. Yeah, and then of course we have some animations that we watch and we turn into narratives, but first we use some descriptive writing, record observations, various things like that. But that's what to expect for your first proper session with us. And with that said, Michael from Mentors, is that Cody? Do you have anything to say for everyone before I send everyone off? Let's just double check before. I'm gonna quickly send them a message. Yes, Michael.